Welcome to Marina's Yarnharbor, a podcast about knitting and yarn. This is episode 4. Hello and welcome to the Yarnharbor. If you're new here, hi, my name is Marina. I'm a knitter in South Central Michigan where I live with my husband and 2 cats. I like to knit and talk about yarn, so that's what I'm going to do here. And if you are a returning viewer, welcome back. It's nice to see you. Today is going to be an episode full of finished objects, including what I'm wearing. So let's just hop right in because last time I rambled a lot. So, first of all, what I'm wearing. I am wearing the Café sweater by Darling Jadore. I knit it with 100% alpaca from Drops, and I believe the name of the yarn is Puna. This is a garment this is my second garment for myself. I have a tendency not to knit garments for myself very often, in part because I am plus size, and so that does make it take a lot longer, and sometimes it can be challenging to find plus size patterns. This one, however, is amazing. Super easy to customize, and I really like the fit. It is hugging just enough, but then the sleeves have a nice drama that I was talking about in the last episode. I could still go for more, but for now this is good. The alpaca was really easy to knit with. It did stretch a little bit upon blocking, which people had warned me that might happen, but I don't mind. I think it's fine. It is, because of the texture, you can see there's these little hairs. Because of the texture, it is just a little bit itchy around the neck, but not horrible, not bad enough that I won't wear it, because actually it's pretty comfy. It just is a texture thing, so bear that in mind if you go to knit with the alpaca, the 100% alpaca from Drops yarn. The end result is very soft. It just, like I said, because it has that texture, if you're sensitive to that, you'll want to be aware of that. So yeah, this is also my first finished object of this episode. I knit this in a size 3XL, so it is super size inclusive. I think it goes up to a 6XL. Don't quote me on that, but I think so. So yeah, so this was the Café sweater by Darling Jadore, and I'm really happy with it. Like I said, I don't often knit garments for myself, in part because it takes so long, but also there's this part of me that's like, what if I get my life together and I lose weight? What about the garments I've knitted? And a friend of mine, a knitty friend of mine, reminded me, well, you'll just knit it again. It's no big deal. You just rip out what you did and size it down. And I was like, oh yeah, that is something I could do. So with that in mind, I'm thinking about more garments for myself and really working on curating a wardrobe of knitted things that will last, that I like, that I'm going to wear. So I've already got a couple of tops kind of on the back burner in my mind mentally that I think I might get to later. But when we get to project planning, I'll touch on that again. So second finished object, drum roll please, ladies and gentlemen. This shawl, if you recall last episode, it was a challenge to say the least, but I have finished the Tanis Shawl, and wow guys, I am so pleased with how this turned out. I fought really hard to make the ombre work, and I think I think that it turned out really well. I was concerned because this is supposed to be pretty light and delicate, and it is. But on the back side where I had to switch yarns, the texture changes a little bit. And I was really worried that it was going to feel chunky in those parts and that it wouldn't keep the delicacy that it was supposed to have. But man, was I wrong. I blocked it out stretched this baby as far as I could, and the end result is just, it's stunning. I'm so happy with it. And I was worried too a little bit about the lace detail, how that was going to work with switching yarns, but I think it turned out, and that the beads really do work really well. Now the beads I actually bought from a local store. It's called Beads to Live By. I haven't shown her yet, but my plan is to take this down and show it to her at the store, because she was super helpful in picking out the right Miyuki seed beads for this project. She had a limited stock, and so there were options, but I was really worried that I didn't have enough to pick from and that I wouldn't end up picking the right bead. But because this bead has a little bit of tint to it, but it's clear otherwise, it actually ends up pulling. You can see a difference in the beads on the lighter yarn down into the beads on the darker yarn. And that's because those beads are clear. They don't have that paint on the inside where the yarn's going through. I don't know a ton about glass beads. I just know that some are painted and some aren't. And these ones weren't. So I'm actually super happy because the result is just a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of delicate twinkle, and not super overwhelming. And then the end result is that this ombre really stands out. So it was a labor of love, to say the least. Y'all know I could have cried over this, and actually in order to finish it, I ended up having to order a second fade set so I could get more of that dark color, because what had happened was I'd gotten down to this part down here, and I had started to blend the darkest color I had into it, and I chose to skip some rows because I knew I was running short on yarn, and I was like, well, maybe I can just bind off and make it work. I got to maybe this much left to bind off and only this much yarn, which meant I lost yarn chicken. So I ordered another set. Well, then the challenge there was the fact that the darkest yarn they had in the set that I got, because they're hand-dyed yarns, I knew this could be a potential issue. It was not as dark as the one I had. So I ended up having to rip back again, and that was not fun. But I ended up having to rip back again and then graft in the new darker color that was only slightly darker than the color before it, and then do the switching back and forth to get to the dark color. But that meant that I definitely had enough to bind off and really get this nice picot bind off edge, because anyone can tell you that eats up yarn way faster than you might think. So this was my challenge of 2023 / the end of 22. This is my beaded shawl for the year. I don't think I'll be doing another one anytime soon, but overall, super happy with it. Really glad that I saw it through to the end. I'm just really interested now to see what my friend's gonna think when I give it to her. She's seen some pictures. She's seen a reel or two of me blocking the thing. So she knows it's done. And actually that's part of why I'm filming today, is I got to get it to her. But I wanted to make sure that I had it for everyone to look at, because I know last time all of my finished objects were just pictures, and that's not nearly as much fun as seeing me fiddle with it on the screen and getting to see some up close details. So super pleased with how this turned out, because I like I said, I was worried there'd be some chunkiness. I was worried there'd be texture problems. There were a lot of concerns with this shawl. Also, again, obviously with getting that ombre just right. And honestly, that was the biggest challenge. This shawl is a great pattern. Super beginner friendly, especially if you haven't done any beading before. There's not an excess of beading. I didn't think that the lace was hard to follow or anything like that. The only thing that made this hard was me making the ombre work. And the reason that was a challenge was because I had to guess how far I could go before I needed to start blending colors. and then how long to blend colors for and how much yarn would that equate to. So next time if I were to do something like this, I have a better idea of how to go about it. I should have done some testing before I started knitting it. But then also, I know you need a lot more yarn, like way more than you think. So I'm very, very happy with this though. It turned out excellent. The next finished object that I have is my Alasse Miriel Hooded Cowl by the Jane Victoria. This is knitted with 100% superwash wool, DK weight yarn. This was custom dyed by my friend and I, my friend Heather, when I went down and visited her. You have to remember that it's, so it's designed to be a hood. And then this is, your neck comes up through this hole. And I kind of feel like I should put it on for you, but it's gonna look weird. So I'm gonna try it, and it's gonna mess up my hair and it'll be fine. Let's see here. Because I do plan to wear this on a practical, regular level pretty frequently. Because like I said, I've got a really nice wool coat that doesn't have a hood. So this is how this works. You bring this down, and this is your cowl. I obviously have this sweater on, so it's not quite there, but then you can tighten that up. Make faces while I put things on. Tie the bow, and then you have a hood. Now, I admit I probably should not have blocked this. I know the instructions say that you should, maybe, or however I blocked this. I don't know if I blocked it right, because I almost liked it better before when everything was a little bit tighter, because this has resulted in a really scallopy, flowy edge, which isn't bad. I just don't think it was fully what I wanted it to do. And if I bring it forward, then yeah. So it's good, and I'm gonna wear it, and I think it'll be fine. I think it's gonna serve its purpose. It's definitely gonna keep my neck warm. I think it looks really cute too. Next time I don't think I'll block this edge. Next time I think I'll just leave this edge alone, and just leave the whole thing alone, because honestly it was big enough. It was big enough before I did it, so I don't think it needed the blocking. But it's done, and if you'll recall, this was on my project planning for last podcast, and so this got done pretty quick. I was incentivized because the weather's been kind of gross, although we haven't really had as much snow as was to be expected. Like, it's been actually kind of disappointing. We had like one decent snowstorm and then nada. And I know there's tons of people here in Michigan who would be like, shush, we had enough, we don't need any more. But it's weird. I don't know. January without snow is really weird to me. So anyway, that is the Alasse Miriel Hooded Cowl. I have a feeling that I'm going to be making another one of these later for a project with my cousin. And like I said, in that one I wouldn't block it. I would just leave it because it looked fine. It didn't need it. But I'm super, super, super happy too with the colorway, because this was an experiment to try and get this kind of like creamy sandy color, kind of taupey. You can tell it's not the same as the off-white, but I think it looks really good. And then with the black satin ribbon, I think that really just makes it. I think it really just makes it. So that is what I'm happy with. My final whip for today is the hat band for my friend Sean. Now, you'll recall the last one was an absolute disaster. This one is still having some issues. However, I think that it's perfectly fine, because what's going to happen is you can see where instead of knitting this, I knit the whole back band, the whole green part first. I just regular knitting, just back and forth. I don't know how many rows. And then for the motif, instead of knitting that, I ended up actually embroidering it into the stitches to make it a little bit cleaner, because by comparison to the last one, it was just bad. The last one was terrible. And so this looks so much cleaner. My embroidery stitches are not as clean or as even as my knit stitches, but that's just because I don't do it as often, and there were a couple times where I got a little bunchy. But what you can see happening, and why it's mostly okay, is that because I embroidered these stitches in here, and I haven't done anything with these stitches, these are curling up on themselves, and it wants to be a little narrower because it doesn't have fibers pushing it to be taller. So the result here is that we already talked about this, that he is going to have to sew a backer onto this, and he said he was perfectly fine with that, not a problem. So when he does that, he'll want to make sure that he stretches the green to be the same width as the rest of the band. And I think once he does that, once he has the backer on, it's going to work out really, really well. You can tell this time the stitches are a lot neater than when I knit them in the round and then steeked. The back is also a lot neater, and to me that is a good indication of whether or not a project is successful, is if the back end of it still looks decent. So overall, really happy with this. It's 100% cotton. I think we used the rainbow from Hobby, their yarn. And so yeah, it turned out really, really well. And so I'm gonna actually be getting this in the mail to him pretty shortly here. Probably in the next couple of days, like Monday. I don't like mailing things on Fridays because I feel like they get stuck in Detroit for longer than they need to. So I'll probably wait till Monday and hope that this makes it all the way through, because it's headed to California. And that is my last finished object. On to my works in progress. I have had the Zosia wrap on my to-do list for a while now, and I've got something else I'm working on, I'll show you here in a second, that has sucked up all of my time. But I thought about it and I was like, you know, why am I dragging my heels on my Zosia wrap? Is it because I think that I should knit it smaller or something like that? But what I decided is that I should just knit it. I should just knit it. And I don't know if you could hear that just now. That was my husband getting ice for his water. Anyway, so Zosia wrap, this is the back. So you start with the back and you work out increases, and then you're going to work down. And this is the, I don't remember the colorway name. It's the pink. It's the pink in the brushed alpaca silk from Drops, which I thought was super affordable. But I really like how it's working out right now. It's very fuzzy. Again, another garment with texture, something to be aware of. But I'm excited for it. I already know a couple different outfits that it's gonna go with, and once we get there, I'll definitely take some pictures and show it paired with something. But in the meantime, it's just the start. It's just the start. I do find that, so I'm knitting this on size, whatever it calls for, US 7s. These are my Knitter's Pride needles that I got from my mother when she passed away. And so what I like about them is they've got the middle tip and the wood, which is nice for something like this, because even though it does have a tendency to catch on itself because of all the fibers, it goes a little bit smoother on the wood. It probably would be a lot faster on metal needles, but when I'm working on a project that I want to be really careful with, I usually will use these because I don't take these outside the house. Even inside the house, we've run into problems. I've left a smaller pair on the couch before, forgot they were there, and then sat on them and broke it right at the join. Not this pair, but others. And so these, when I'm doing something that is particularly nice or delicate, or that I don't want anything to happen to, I knit them on my nicer needles that I'll be careful with. Although that being said, I still really do love my Chiaogu red lace, and I find that to be the best for like socks, but also when I need length, because I have a lot of 40-inch length ones in there, in the red lace, and so it works out better. Now, with that segue, on my red lace needles, oh man, I'm in the middle of a row. Oh well. So on my red lace, size, I think it's 5. That's the hard part, man. No, 4. Size 4. Size US 4, 40-inch red lace Chiaogu needles. I have the Aurora Cabin Shawl by Stephen West. I talked about this in my last project planning, and I started it, and I've gotten pretty far. I would hold it. I was seriously considering putting it on some Stitch Saver cables to stretch it all the way out so you could see it. But there are so many stitches on here that I really don't want to risk dropping one. Because I think at this point we're over like 400, maybe close to 500 stitches, which is why this pattern actually calls for like a 45-inch cable, I think. 44, 45, like it calls for more inches than I have. But I'm going to make it do on a 40. You can see it starts off in this really pretty sunburst and stripe pattern, moves into this slip stitch. Then we have another set of stripes, another set of slip stitch, and now I'm on this third set of like polka dot striping. This section can be a little tricky. I didn't find, so let's just start from the beginning. So back at the beginning, I actually ripped this out and started like 3 or 4, maybe 5 times, because there was a section where you have to, I think it's knit through the back loop or yarn over or something, I can't remember, and there was a purl stitch somewhere in there, and so I kept missing a yarn over, not intentionally, and so my stitch count was off like 5 times, which was really annoying. But once I got that past that point and then got into the color work, I really love this beginning section. Because it's small, it knits up fast, but also I love the contrast between the white and the bluey, greeny, teal color. I didn't find, once I got through this section and kind of read the directions a couple different times, I don't find this section particularly challenging because it is just slip stitches. There is one row per like juncture where you can see that it splits. That is a section where you have to it's kind of cabling. It's bringing a stitch forward, knitting 2, and then putting it back. It doesn't result in a cable, obviously. It results in that V. Those rows do take a little bit more concentration to make sure that you are actually moving the correct stitch. But aside from that, this was not, it looks really, really detailed, but it actually isn't that complicated. This section here was a much needed respite though, because this section, while it's not hard or challenging to understand or to knit, it can get a little bit tiresome. Like by the time you're done with one of those sections, you're like, oh good, I'm glad I'm done with one of those sections. So this was a much needed respite of just knitting and purling back and forth. And then we moved into another one of these sections. And then this section has been by far the most difficult for me because you have to knit 1, purl 1 in 2 different rows. And if you don't have your stitch count just right and you're not knitting and purling in the right spot, it will mess it up and it will not look correct. And I could not for the life of me figure out what was wrong. Well, I ended up going onto a blog, I can't remember whose it was, but they did detailed pictures and had zoomed up images of their stitches, whereas I tried to zoom in on the Stephen West pictures and I just was like, I don't understand what's happening here. And so I really appreciate, I should look up who that blog is. If I remember, I will put it either in the description or in a little note here. But they saved me because I was able to look at it and see, okay, this should have been 2 knit stitches together. This should have been, and I could kind of sleuth back and fix it. Turns out that at one point I had accidentally given myself a new stitch somehow, created a yarn over and just, yay, new stitch. That can happen sometimes when you're slipping stitches and you don't really realize what you've done. And then the other thing that had happened was I had accidentally done, instead of knit 1, purl 1, I'd done purl 2 instead. So I had gotten off. So just watch that, because if you don't have that just right, it will not create the polka dot effect. That being said, I have really been enjoying knitting this. It's interesting. It's fun to knit. The thing that is bogging me down a little bit though is, again, this knit purl row. My my wrists really, really don't like having to do knit purl, which is a shame because I really like how ribbed garments look. But it is what it is. The other thing too is that you start off, it goes really fast to begin with because you're growing, but the rows are still short. And so it's really exciting, gets you super into it. And then you're just going along. And then as you keep growing, it starts to like, these rows are gigantic. And I'm not even on to like the last slip stitch section. And then once I finish these polka dot rows, I have another slip stitch section. And then I have chevron bind, like the chevron edging, which I could skip, but I really don't want to because I like how it looks. And then an I-cord edge. So there's just a lot of work left in this. Now, I did not discuss colors. The colorways are not named, but they are part of the Sophisticated Chalet kit from my cousin, Astasia, over at Beautiful Simplicity Fiber Company. And so we've got a white color, kind of more of a cream. She did dye it. It's not straight white. It's more like an off-white. We've got an off-white, got a nice charcoal gray. And then we've got this really pretty, I love this so much. It's like a tealy green blue. And then we have, this is more of a mushroomy taupe color, or maybe a fawn. And I like this one a lot. I think mushroom is the color, mushroom. And the very last one is a really, really pretty, very deep burgundy wine color. This actually makes me think of the dresses that my cousin and my other bridesmaids wore at my wedding. It's just a very rich, like Bordeaux sort of color. So super, super pretty. I do believe that she's got plans to have the kits available for sale. I'm just trying to hurry up and get this sample done so that people can see what it's going to look like, and that we can get it into the yarn store. So this has been, other than finishing up the finished objects that I had, this is priority number one for now. And then that's pretty much it. That's what I've got for whips. Like I said, I'm trying to be monogamous. I have other things that I could be starting, like I did with the Zosia wrap, which for me, having a big project and then another project going, the Zosia wrap is going to get bigger. I know it is. But for right now, it's just a couple rows of knitting and purling. And so it makes it like a nice, what's the word I want to put it? Like a palette cleanser a little bit. It's not a full-on palette cleanser project. I do have a couple that I'm thinking about, but it just, something to break up the monotony of those knit one, purl one rows. I'm almost done though. I say I'm almost done, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm on the fifth repeat, and there's going to be 8 in total. So I'm almost halfway, or I am halfway, almost over halfway. But yeah, so those are the whips. Now project planning. Clearly I have to finish that Aurora cabin shawl first. But I've got 2 coming up that are eminent. These aren't just like, I'll be honest, I have not touched the socks for Spencer. It just hasn't happened. Because of these 2 things that are coming next that are, well, and because of the Aurora cabin shawl. So the first thing that I've got planned is the Wrap Me Up sweater scarf, for my cousin, Astasia. She really, like, it's gonna be really pretty. That is by Knitatude, by the way, the Chantal, I practice this Mia Gishima Chantal, Knitatude. So the Wrap Me Up sweater scarf, seen it all over. It's gorgeous. I watched a couple pictures, but I saw a couple pictures from Adelaide Fiber Company here in Michigan. Met her at a fiber festival. She's awesome. But saw hers and I'm like, yeah, we definitely have to knit this. The second thing that I've got for project planning is the Sheer V sweater by Jessie Maed. I've been thinking about it a lot. And so the reason that these two come up next is because of the acquisitions I've recently gotten. So you may, if you follow me over on Instagram, you may have seen that I unboxed some yarn. So Astasia sent me yarn. I'm so excited. She sent me 4 skeins of the colorway Sherlock from her Enola Holmes box. And so these are in her fingering weight Squish Me base. These are going to be the foundation for the sheer V sweater. And then when she gets some mohair in, she's going to send that to me as well. And I'm going to get started on this beautiful thing. I'm planning for this to live at the yarn store for a little while and then take it back so I can actually wear it. So that is my first acquisition, is 4 skeins of Sherlock from my cousin Astasia. And then the next set of, oh, go back in the bag. The other big acquisitions are yarns from Astasia as well. These are in her Delicious DK base. And this is purple. I've already caked it, clearly. Didn't cake it well, but I caked it. I got 4 skeins. Oh, that's where that knitting needle went. Okay. I've got 4 skeins of this unnamed color. If you have ideas for the name for this colorway, let me know in the comments below. It's really pretty. I don't know if the camera is going to do it justice, but this is such a really, really pretty mauve purple. It's going to look so good on her as this really, really pretty sweater scarf. So that's my second big acquisition, and it's caked up because we're gonna get started on that here pretty soon once I'm a little bit further. Well, who am I kidding? I'd like to say it's once I'm a little bit further in my shawl. I'll probably cast on today. I can't help myself. Some other acquisitions that I got. Like I said, I had to buy another kit from Fibre for that one color, but I'm really not counting that because even though I did acquire it, it was to finish a project, and the fade is probably going to sit for a little bit until I can figure out what I want to do with it. The temptation to try and find a way to do colorwork socks is really strong. The only thing is, because it's 100% superwash merino and doesn't have any nylon in it, I get a little bit concerned about that for socks, unless it were to be like just the cuff, and then I figured out something else for the foot. But we'll just have to see. But in addition to purchasing that set from Fibre, I also purchased a skein of their Core DK, which is 100% superwash merino wool, about 231 yards. It is in the color Flutter. And I don't know what it was about this, but I was looking at it and I was like, oh, I want to get free shipping. I wanted free shipping, so I bought yarn. I'm sure the shipping cost less, but I didn't care. I wanted free shipping. I really like it because it's just a really soft, kind of gentle, calming, neutral, greeny blue, but then you have these really, really fun pops of speckle. I keep trying to get DK weight so that I can build up my stash of DK so that I can do there's a Stitch on Sunday blanket from Row and Cades from Kelly, and I tried to do it with fingering weight held double and it just didn't. Plus, I don't know why the colors I picked, I'm like, eh. So this is something that I bought with that in mind, that hopefully if I've got extra left over, I might be able to do like a stash buster, but then have this be a couple different squares of the blanket. So we'll just see. We'll just see how that goes. And then this arrived a lot like sooner than I talked about it, and I haven't even posted to social media about it, which I feel bad about because I was super excited to get it. I have a one-of-a-kind sock yarn skein from Amanda over at Little Lycac. she was so sweet. I won a giveaway. That's how I won a giveaway from Little Like Hack Yarns. And this was a result of her kind of taking whatever dye colors she had left, kind of blending them all together and making a really interesting skein. I am super excited that this is going to become socks. I know this is going to become socks. I haven't decided which socks yet, or maybe I'll make up a new sock pattern and this will be it. But I very rarely do I win things. And so I was really excited and it came super quickly. So I just want to say thank you, Amanda, because it's gorgeous. It's a lot of fun. We got a lot of blues, a lot of purples. There's some brown in there, some kind of like dark mauve-y color. They're gonna be really, really pretty socks. Like I said, do I know which socks yet? No, of course not. But yeah, they're 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 100 grams, so for about 400 meters, so a little over that for yardage, and it just stays squishy. It's just nice. So this was really, really cool. And then my final acquisition is a yarn bowl. So my friend Daisy teases me pretty badly about my knitting because she knows I'm obsessed, and I don't mind it. It makes me laugh because I've got yarn in my purse and she knows it. But she saw this and she thought of me, and it was so sweet. And so it really surprised me because I know, not being a knitter herself, she was like, it's really neat. Just what would I use it for? And then she thought immediately of me. So really pretty yarn bowl. I've already been using it a ton. I like it a lot. It's very, I like natural wood things and textures, so it's definitely up my alley. I do have another one that I use sometimes, but I don't use it often enough because I don't know why. I just don't like it. It's weird because it's a yarn vase actually, and it's got a little hole and then a lid that you stick on and the yarn goes through, and I don't know. I like this better. Daisy, you did good. Thank you very much. So yeah, that is it for my acquisitions. I really was trying to not buy yarn this month. I think a lot of us are kind of doing that, reflecting on how much yarn we have in stash, trying to think of how we can use it. But even still, even without me going out there and doing a ton of shopping, I did still end up buying some yarn and then ending up with a lot more new yarn on my plate, which, it's a good problem to have, honestly. And I don't know if you can have too much yarn. I think you probably can. You probably can have too much yarn. Or is it that you don't have enough storage totes? I don't know. A question for deep thinkers to address. I decided not to do an Instagram inspiration section today because I have so much on my plate already. I've kind of been avoiding Instagram in a little bit because I got real busy and then I got burnt out a little bit. I've been meaning to hop back on, try and post a little bit more, but I just kind of needed a breather. So we're going to see how I do after this. But honestly, I have so much to knit already right now that I knew going to look for more was probably not wise. So I didn't. So we're going to end today with acquisitions. I just want to say thank you for watching today. If you are so inclined, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that fun stuff. If you'd like to leave a comment with potentially a colorway name for this yarn, I'm all ears open to hearing it. I don't know. I'll run them by Astasia and see what she thinks. Yeah, so that's pretty well it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a really great